This presentation, if you've been to it every year, we try to cover every single new feature, no matter how exciting, is going to be covered inside this presentation. So the theme, though, as we go into it, is going to be, I want to go fast. I love Talladega Nights. It's a great movie. But basically, it's the idea that we basically have 60 slides that we're about to present for you, covering in 45 minutes every single low-level feature that's new inside the Appian 16.2 release. So let's kick right into it. And the main theme also with Appian 16.2, unfortunately, is that it is huge. There's a lot of content to cover. So we're going to be as quick as possible as well. And to remind everyone, Appian has a quarterly release cycle. We release software every single quarter. This release is known as 16.2. We will have another release in about one quarter called 16.3. We'll have another release in about October called 16.4, and another one in January called 17.1. And that is the cycle that we go through on that quarterly pace. But 16.2 is one of the more significant ones in that release cycle. We're going to be covering the three main areas of the Appian product: end-user capabilities, design capabilities, and admin capabilities. And with that, I'm going to leave it to Adam Glazer, VP Product, to cover end-user.
Thanks, Malcolm. So I want to start by reminding everyone of the three different ways that users experience Appian. There's, of course, Tempo. That's our knowledge worker interface on both web and mobile. It's probably the one that most of you are familiar with. It's the one we've had the longest. Sites is one of our newer interfaces. It's our fit-for-purpose interface, again, both on web and mobile. And we have Embedded Sail, which is Appian's technology for putting user interfaces inside of custom websites. The great news about what I'm going to be talking about is that it doesn't matter which of these interfaces you're using, or if you're using all of them, they all got better in 16.2. To start with, I'm going to talk about something that is specific to Tempo, which is that Tempo got wider in 16.2. This is something customers have been asking for. We're happy to deliver it. It's actually 25% wider than it was before. This looks terrific on data-dense interfaces like records, looks great with grids, and allows your users to see even more of your visual screens like charts on Appian reports. Another improvement is that we've increased the limit on the number of custom record views that you can configure for a record. We found that a lot of our customers are using the powerful visibility configuration feature to show different sets of, to show different sets of views to different users. So the increased limit allows you to show the most important facets of your records to different people based on who they are or what they need to do. Another thing that we learned when talking to customers is that a lot of you are looking to use the title information available on the user profile to show not just traditional rank information, but project or even role-specific information. So to facilitate that, we've added a feature in 16.2 that lets users, when editing their own profiles, select a title from the available drop-down list or enter one for themselves freeform. Anything that's entered freeform will be added to the global list that other users can select from. Now, if this doesn't fit your use case, this feature does have to be turned on in the admin console before it can be used. We've added a great new Sail component to our component library. It's called the Hierarchy Browser Field. And what it does is it allows you to visualize, navigate, and select items by traversing their relationships. It has a very familiar columns-oriented feel, like you'll find with Apple's Finder or Windows Explorer. And the configuration for this component is extremely powerful. You can source the data for this from anywhere that you can query. It can be static data in a list. It can be from a query to a database. It can be from a call out to a web service. When configuring the component, you can control whether an item is drillable, whether it's selectable, and you can even put an image icon next to an item so that your users can quickly identify if that's the one they're looking for when selecting it. We have a lot of good information about this component in our docs. We also have a helpful recipe to get you started, so I'd encourage you to go and take a look at that. Another improvement that we're making to an existing Sail component is that we now have the capability to put image icons inside of our existing rich text field. So this is great because you can make the kind of visualizations that you see here. You can have text right alongside and adjacent to an image. Images not only make your interfaces more appealing, which they do, but they also make them more efficient for your users. So if you think about an interface that has images on it, you can much more rapidly scan to figure out either what you need to do or what the status of something is. The image that you use can be sourced from an Appian document or a web image, depending on how you configure it. And it is even supported if you put a rich text field with an image icon inside of an editable grid. So you can get some really great looking dense record grids, no matter where you put them. Speaking of records, we do have a brand new record picker component that lets users search for and select records based on a configured record type. As with Appian's other pickers, as the user starts typing, we're going to automatically suggest possible search results. And when configuring it, if you're the designer putting this on an interface, you can add query filter criteria, that can limit the types of records that are returned to only meet the selection criteria that you want. As with records, the security works the way you expect. Users are only going to be able to see and select records that they already have access to. Another records-related feature, and a big one at that, is that we've now added the capability to have a sites page configured to point to a record type. So at this point now, your sites can be comprised of actions, task reports, and sites. So when making a sites page that points at a record, you get to pick whether you want the record list to show up in the list view like you see here, or in the new grid view that we added with Appian 16.1. Regardless of which view representation you pick, when a user selects a record from the list, they'll see that record right there without leaving their place, and they'll also see any configured related actions or views that record already has. Another major sites improvement is the addition of new branding capabilities. Branding is a great way to personalize your site. It gives them a familiar look and feel, or a motif that they're used to working with compared to their other applications. When configuring branding, you can configure the logo that a user sees, the browser icon that they see, the header background color, and the selected tab color. We did something pretty cool with colors here. We allowed the colors to be evaluated based on the results of an expression. So what you can do with that is that you can have the exact same site look different in different environments, or you can have it look different to different sets of users, or you can even have it look different depending on the time of day. So there's a lot of possibilities there because of our expression language. Let's take a look at it in action. Here is one manifestation you can make with our branding capabilities. The browser icon, the fav icon, and the logo can be sourced from an Appian document or a web image as well. And the selected tab color and header background color can be precisely specified down to the hex code that you want so that you can truly express your brand and we can meet your requirements. This is what makes sites a truly customized experience top to bottom. Whatever you want, you can have here. It doesn't look at all like Tempo. This is Appian the way that you want to work if you're a fit-for-purpose worker. Now let's take a look at it on mobile, which looks pretty fantastic. This exact same site that you configured for your web users is available on your mobile device with absolutely no additional work. That's what's pretty amazing about this. You don't have to do a single thing. You pull out your phone. This is your site. Those branding configurations I just talked about also apply to mobile. And you can also see here that we make intelligent use of the available screen real estate. For example, by putting the navigation bar on the side for large form factors when in landscape mode and tucking it neatly at the top of smaller phones. Staying with the mobile theme for a few minutes, we've made a number of improvements in 16.2. The first of which is that we've taken the barcode field component that we've had and we've now made it so that on Android it uses the device's built-in camera. This opens up a whole host of mobile work use cases, and the configuration of this component, it makes using it as a user a breeze. You can tell it when configuring it what type of code you want to accept. So as a user, you just pull out your camera, point it at the code that you want to scan, and even if there are other types of codes around it, which often happens on packaging, the camera will find the one that you've configured for that component and ignore the rest. Another Android feature that we added is that we've made it so you can upload any type of file when using a sail file upload component. We've always had the ability to take a picture to upload, or to choose one from your photo library, or to scribble with your finger and call it a signature, though it never really ends up looking like your signature. And now you can choose any file type that the device knows about. So for example, it could be an audio file. It can be something that you've saved from a different application to your downloads folder, or it can be a registered file type that a different application on your phone exposes, like a cloud-enabled one like Google Drive. We're always looking for ways to make working on your mobile device more natural and easier for our users. And so we're happy to bring the offline static actions feature that we've had on iOS over to Android in 16.2. The way that offline static actions work is that when configured to be available for offline by the designer, an action and its initial data, anything that's going to render the first time you see it, is downloaded to the phone and stored so that when you're offline, which you can see here with that banner at the top, you can still access it from the Actions drawer on Android. You can fill in the information that the form requires, and then when you hit submit, instead of going back to the server, which of course it can't, it queues for submission, which happens automatically in the background when you require a connection. If there are any validations on the form, for example, required field that you didn't fill in, you'll see it in the pending actions list even once you're back online because you haven't finished filling it out the right way. And just like we have on iOS, we have a pretty sophisticated change management system. A lot of people that are doing offline work or that may encounter the need to work offline could be offline for an extended period of time. For example, they're working in a disaster area where there is a lack of a connection for a significant amount of time. Well, what happens when the form definition that was downloaded to the phone has actually been changed? You've updated the version of the form that they need to fill out. Let's say, for example, you've added a new field or changed the definition of one of the fields to be, it used to be a paragraph component, maybe now it's a drop-down. Well, we're not just going to clobber those changes. What's going to happen when you come back online is that it's going to remain in the pending actions list with a little icon saying that it couldn't submit. And when you open it, you'll see the old and new definitions side by side so that you can resolve the differences. We will intelligently map all the fields that haven't changed from the old form to the new and simply let you fill out all the fields that you need to based on the changes before submitting it so that it can be processed. And on the iOS side of things, Appian now supports the Good Dynamics platform, which is one of the industry's leading enterprise mobility management systems. It's available as a separate download from either the Apple App Store and or the Good Marketplace, and it's called Appian for Good. And just like our regular version, a regular iOS version, has all the exact same features, but it's additionally enabled to be provisioned and controlled by the Good platform. This allows your IT organization to do everything from remote lock out a user to remote wipe the Appian sandbox to disable the camera, to disable copy and paste from the application, and a whole host of other good security features. I think that's it for user. On to designers.
Thanks, Adam. And of course, if you didn't memorize every single one of those slides, we can always have a Q&A session at the end. Well, let's go on to the designer experience. Now, there's a new solution, the designer experience, called Quick Apps. Not sure if you've all heard it already, maybe built a Quick App already, but we'll go over a quick recap of what Quick Apps are. Quick Apps, of course, are quick to build. It really accelerates the development time. Designed for loosely automated work to basically organize a dynamic, record-centric work style environment. And it's also based on business user design, so it's actually approachable by your citizen developers to come in and build solutions very quickly to meet their needs. Quick Apps, of course, have a simple wizard they're going to follow. You just simply name the Quick App, define the form fields that you want. Pretty much this is the meat of it on this form fields. As you define every single one of these fields, this is going to drive your data store, your data type, your process models. Everything's going to be defined from this one simple configuration. After that, I simply define the collaborators and I can preview the form and move on with my Quick App. So once I preview, feel everything is good, move on to find my collaborators, who I'm going to share this Quick App with. That's the security setting, and publish that Quick App. And now I can start using it. If you haven't already seen the experience of a Quick App from an end user perspective, it is centered around the Tempo UI. So if you simply go to the Actions menu, immediately on the Finish action, you'll see essentially the Quick App actions and records available to you. As I go and add, say, a new work journal entry, I can go ahead and fill the information just like any other Appian form. One interesting thing about Quick Apps is they all do include file attachment capabilities, so I can associate as many documents as I want with every single item inside the Quick App. And of course, as well, I can go to the record navigation page, and it's going to build this very nice record screen showing the name of each of the work items, the statuses, the priorities, and nice facet filters on the left-hand side, all built out of the box very quickly. Now, of course, as well, I can go into each one of those individual items, navigate to it, and in the upper right-hand corner, I have those contextual-related actions that were automatically built for the Quick App, such as updating the journal entry, sending a task, or creating a new one. Now, there's another experience of Quick Apps, which is very similar, called the App Wizard. The App Wizard is in the full design time experience. The one difference between Quick Apps and the App Wizard in 16.2 is this screen right here. where you see the ability to define the data source. As a reminder, quick apps, the data source which I publish the quick app goes into a setting that the admin controls. So I'm going to say, create a sandbox environment for all my citizen developers. They're only going to work in this data source. But the full designer can actually choose the different data sources from the app wizard experience to have different variability of how they persist that data for the application they want to build. Now what the app wizard is designed to do, rather than say building a quick app, it's really designed to also define the scaffolding of the application. It's going to define the data types, records, processes, rules, reports, interfaces, all the things you typically need to build in a common Appian application. Now as I go through it, it's going to be the exact same wizard, name, interface, collaborators, just like before, and publish that to the environment. If you haven't heard already as well, you can now use Appian in all the major browsers, Safari, Chrome, Edge, Firefox. We do have a Process Modeler Preview Edition available. So 16.2, if you load the Appian Process Modeler in IE9, IE10, or IE11, you're going to get the exact same Process Modeler you've been enjoying for the past several years. If you open up that same process from Google Chrome, Firefox, Safari, or Edge, you're going to get this experience. Brand new icons, brand new styling, and also capability, of course, to debug those CL forms inline inside the Process Modeler as well. So as it comes to that, if I go into the debugging as well, if you're not aware of this feature, debugging allows me to select and run a process inline. Now prior to 16.2, if you're using SAIL forms, it kicked you back into the tempo experience to debug those SAIL forms. Now it's a much more fluid experience. As I choose to debug that form, it's simply going to pop up the form immediately right in front of me. I can go ahead and interact with the form like a live user, pretend to play with the system, submit that form, and then track the process. I can actually see then stepping through all the steps of the process, just like a code stepping environment. I can right-click on individual items, choose to initiate, or maybe jump into individual interfaces right there. If they're SAIL forms, they'll jump right into the SAIL form. If they're old portal forms, they'll jump right into the old portal form, just like before. Process management smart services is actually a big and important one. If you're able to attend some of the other tracks or learning sessions around automated testing in the Appian product and automated management of Appian processes, this is a key enabler of that. So Appian's introducing these 4 set of new smart services to control other processes. So now you can design a process that starts other processes. And this is different from a sub-process. A sub-process, you have an option to start things synchronously or asynchronously, and there's also report tracking. This is now supporting dynamic sub-processing capabilities. So if I have the process needs to be dynamically determined, such as I have lots of different regions or locales, and for Australia, for Europe, for Asia, they've all chosen different process models, and I need a business rule to fire that determines which process to fire dynamically as it runs. You can use now the Start Process Smart Service to dynamically drive dynamic process models as it in the runtime. Same thing with complete task. Many times you have to create like task management applications or quick approvals. The complete task smart service allows you to define an automated activity that completes other tasks. You can run this in bulk. So if I need to say, yeah, I just want to have another process I can do bulk approval of other processes or other process tasks, I can use that complete task smart service. This is also very valuable in building testing scenarios. So if I need to automatically say run through a process, I can create another process that scripts the behavior of one of my production processes. By doing that with the start process and complete task items, I can simulate user behavior by using the complete task smart service. And of course as well, cancel process has also been introduced to allow you to cancel out individual processes, kind of remove them from the system in a bulk fashion. Next, new process model variables. So to support really the dynamic sub-process smart service, it required us to introduce a new variable type called process models. So by having a process model variable type, I can now have a rule drive the contents of that variable. So I can say, if user requests came in from Asia, then select the Asia process model to dynamically start inside the sub-process or the start process. Enables those dynamic sub-process use cases. New folder functions. So document management, as we all know, is a core part of the Appian product. There's been a wide variety of plugins that are very popular with our community base to augment and enhance the capabilities. One of those is browsing children of document folders. Now you no longer need those plugins. The folder function itself has been extended to just have two new properties, document children and folder children. So if I come in here and say folder, give it the folder ID, and then say I want to have all the children of this folder, it's going to give me a listing of all those documents down below. So no longer need to have those plugins to understand child behavior or child content of folders. Expression error message improvements. So as you define these expressions in the web API, SAIL interface, or the rule expression editor, we have a lot more feedback now for developers to tell them exactly where errors are. So now you'll see that I can see the exact line numbers. If I miss a comma or miss a semicolon, I see the exact line number. So a little applause there, thank you. It's the little things that count for developers, right? Syntax errors, much more detail of exactly what was wrong. And like here, the target is missing. Understanding, hey, you had this item with colon, the target that I wanted to specify is missing. Save interface as action report. So this allows you, when I'm creating an interface, many times I'm creating an interface with the intent of using that as a start form or publishing it as a report. Prior to Appian 16.2, that was a multi-step action where I would say, okay, I'm going to define the interface. Now I'm going to launch the process modeler. I'm going to define a new process. I'm going to define that SAIL form that is created to be the start form, kind of a multi-step area. Now I can simply, from the interface directly, say I want to save as a report or application action. When I choose that, it's automatically going to say, well, okay, what's the action you want to create? It's going to create a process model of that name, automatically publish the process model as an action in tempo, create the process model from scratch, save it all in the necessary folders as well. So kind of a developer accelerator to do multiple steps in one action. Same thing with a report. If I'm creating an interface as a report, prior to Appian 16.2, I would define the report, then I would define the interface, then I define a tempo report, then I would map the tempo report to that interface I just created. Now simply save as report, done, it's published to the tempo environment. Auto-suggest for local variables. So we've been enjoying auto-suggest in a wide variety of the expression editors, such as rules, constants, and as well rule inputs that we introduced in 16.1. Now you have local variables. So if you're familiar with the load function or the with function, these allow us to define local variables in the context of an expression. So here I have load, variable x, variable y, and I want to add local x with, then a sub one, z, 3, local plus, so simple little mathematical calculation. Complex here though, because I have a local z here that is inside a sub kind of with function, so that's scoped outside of load, right? So this one, this local z should only be available to inside the contents of the with expression. So when I type local bang, I see all the intelligent auto-suggest suggestions of, oh, did you mean X or Y? Z is not actually valid inside this scope. Invoking smart service from SAIL. So this one seems simple, but it's actually highly transformative. There's a whole number of demos yet to be created that really leverage us to the full extent. You can asynchronously call select smart services. And this will not only allow you to invoke a variety of smart services, such as the start process, complete task, document management, uploading documents, managing documents, identity management, dynamic document generation, things like this, all available from calling now from an Appian SAIL smart service. So what this means is, let's say I created a record page and I had a update action. So I need to create a separate process model to update the contents of that record page. You technically don't even need that anymore. You could just directly invoke the right to data store smart service from the SAIL page itself and directly transact across that data source without ever having to touch process. Transformative in the first way, as far as it does allow you to create even lighter designs, meaning that you don't need to have the heavy weightness of process, which has detailed audit trail history analytics. If you don't need that, you can do direct invocation. It does give you these more XA transactional compliant actions from SAIL. So I can do a full transaction, write, and then get the commit back. So if I say upload a document, calling the upload document smart service, it uploads it and gives me the doc ID back right in line. And then after the refresh, I get the doc ID. I can then refresh the entire page to create highly dynamic interactive experiences that also write data, external data sources. In this example, I used a web API to basically initiate a process. So if you're using the old SOAP interface for exposing processes as web services, you no longer need that. You can simply use the new RESTful web API capability with the start process And there's a simple wizard that will help you do that. So if you go through to creating a new web API here, I simply give it a new web API, like new service request API. I want to have a post action. I'm going to then choose one of my templates. So there's quick build templates. That first template here is called start process. I simply select that. It's going to select for a constant pointer to the process model I want to reference. So I say, well, yeah, I want to have my service request process. And boom, there's my web API for exposing that as a custom endpoint. A lot of benefits over this using the old SOAP version. Of course, this is a modern RESTful interface. You can build as many of these web APIs as you want. There's more granular security control and version management of these as well. Save default test data for web APIs. Another minor enhancement to the web APIs architecture. As I'm building up web APIs, I want to also then have different test scenarios. So by defining this, I can say have a complex JSON or XML body I'm going to define down below. And when I save the web API, I will save the full test with the web API. So you can always come back to it and very rapidly rerun those tests across the designs. Format expression in Web API Designer, something that's just been missing. So it's a small oversight in previous versions, but you'll notice that inside the Web API Designer, if you're creating very messy expressions, go ahead and just hit Control-Shift-F or Command-Shift-F if you're on a Mac, or go ahead and just hit that button and we'll nicely format your entire expression in one instance so it's very nicely readable. This data type mapping is a challenge for basically we want to improve the performance or the detection of mapping issues to databases. So what this means is that there's a warning dialog now that if a change would result in either invalid data store mapping or being auto-updated, you're going to see much more descriptive errors to understand how those changes are going to impact the mapping of a CDT to the external data store. But to go along with that is a larger theme that we've been calling internally data type evolution. Data type evolution simply means that our customers don't just define their data structures and then never change them. Your businesses evolve over time, and therefore the data structures that you define need to also change over time. And as you know, change is really hard, especially with data types. If I add or modify values to my data type, it has this cascading effect on all the rules, constants, SAIL interfaces I also need to update to inherit that change. Data type evolution now, or the data type change management feature here, takes care of automatically updating all the nested objects, all the referenced objects in one action. So you no longer even have to hit a button that says auto update. As soon as you change a data type, boom, it will go through, it'll automatically update the mapping data store, it'll update the expression rules, update the interfaces, update all related data types to inherit those changes as well. Batch testing of expression rules is a new set of smart services as well. So to go along with the process smart services, we also have rule-based smart services. So as you've probably seen over the past several releases, we had automated testing frameworks being baked into the rules environment in Appian. Allowed you to define a whole variety of rules on each step to catch those unit tests. Inside 16.2, you can now have smart services to run those rules in bulk at two levels. System-wide, so you can just say, run the entire rules across my entire system to validate my entire system integrity and the testing of those, or run it on an application-specific test. Now, you can also run these smart services directly from expressions or web APIs. So you can actually create a web API that simply directly invokes a start rule, test all, or application base. This facilitates integration of like CI systems. So if you want to have a Jenkins or Bamboo environment, call a web API and then automatically run all the tests across the entire Appian product, you can now do that very easily by combining these smart services with the web API designer. There is also a new application data type. This is going directly to support the rules environment that we just talked about. So the application data type allows you to define those web APIs and expressions that reference a specific application context. As I reference that application context, I can say run all tests for that application. Facilitates automated testing and deployment as well. Last few slides on design time. How many people are running health checks? How many people are aware, or how often, who runs a health check weekly? No one. Did everyone know that when you're in development, that is the recommendation right back there. So we have a week checker every week. So right here as well. So that is the recommendation. We have a free service available to you called Appian Health Check. Encourage you to go to the actions menu inside Appian Forum, free of charge. We recommend it in your development environment, say, make it a habit. like 4 o'clock on Friday, go ahead and upload your app, run a health check, let it come back on Monday and see the results. But this is the recommendation. Run weekly for dev, run monthly for production. All we're doing is analyzing your designs. We want to reduce the risk of your designs, make sure you're not doing anything incorrect or out of best practice, give you some guardrails of how to actually design Appian applications, and this is the best tool to facilitate that. And also, how many people read the entire playbook? No one. All right, so go read the playbook. Every single question is answered here of how best to manage your Appian environment. There's 2 things in Appian documentation. There's docs. I want to figure out how the folder function works. I want to figure out how the smart service works. That's great for just individual documentation reference. But it's also important to look at the entire Appian playbook. The entire Appian playbook gives you an end-to-end guide of not just how to kind of manage Appian, but how to install Appian, how to run agile practices with it, how to do cloud versus on-premise deployments, what's the right type of person you need to hire, so hiring the right skill sets, delivering team roles. This is a comprehensive guide to managing an Appian implementation. So if you haven't read it, another free resource available to you on Appian Forum. Simply search for in the documentation Appian Playbook. You'll see it right away. The Appian Playbook also is continuously updated, so you're wondering, well, how does implementation guides affect 16.2? Well, great, we've already thought of that. We're actively updating the playbook to always reference the latest and greatest version of the Appian product. And going on to the last and most exciting section,
yes,
administrators.
Always most exciting. That's why he always gives it to me. There we go.
And end user, too.
Yeah. So this last bucket contains some enhancements and new features that make setting up and managing Appian even easier than it was before. In a previous version of Appian, we made it so that you can configure your data sources directly inside the Appian administration console. You do it through a UI, not through XML anymore. And in this version, we've made it so that you can export those settings along with a few other configurations that are generally going to be related to your applications, all right from the admin console. The configurations you can export are the data sources, the plugin encryption settings, the third-party credentials, and the user start pages. And it's done through this easy-to-use interface that lets you either select the property types to export or filter by when they are modified. And then you get an export package similar to what you get with an application or a patch. You then take that package and then you can import it. Now, you can import it right from within the admin console, and we've done something to make it even more convenient. At the same time that you're importing the admin console package, you can import a related application or a patch that relies on that configuration setting. Now, we recognize that while the type of resource that a given application requires isn't going to change across dev or test or prod, the configured values of those settings will change, right? So for example, the connection string for your data source is going to be different when you're in dev than in prod. So to address that, we've created an import customization file capability that lets you specify the correct value for the target system at import time. So now that you have the application or the admin console package and the import customization file specific to your target environment, you can take that package and you can import it into every subsequent environment along with the specific file with the values for that environment. This means you never have to go and manually reconfigure the same settings each and every single time. And to support the programmatic upload of admin console packages and import customization files, we've updated the public APIs for inspect and import, and you can read about those in the public API documentation. An improvement that we've made to facilitate the automatic provisioning of new Appian installations is that we have a new configuration that lets you specify a system administrator user that's going to be automatically created when the application server first starts up. It's done through the use of a one-time only properties file, so it really is for new installations, wherein you provide the configuration and we will create that user if there's no other active system administrator user on that system already. We made an enhancement to the user activity page that shows current active users. It used to only show 100, now it shows up to 1,000 users. A user is considered active if they've used the system within the last 1 hour. And on this page, which is a great monitoring tool, you can see all the users with a link to their user profile. You can see when they were last active. You can see what IP address they were coming from. You can see what client, web browser version they were using or which mobile client they were using to access your system. We've also added a new metrics file on the monitoring side that shows you every 12 hours the total number of registered users in your system, total number of active users over that 12-hour period, and total number of active system administrators in the same period. One larger new feature that we've added to the admin console is a brand new user management page. This allows you to create and manage your users right from within the admin console. You can create a new user and fill out all their information. You can also search for and select existing users, check multiple of them, and perform bulk actions like bulk deactivate, bulk reactivate, bulk reset of password. And if you click on an individual user, you can view and modify anything about that user. You can update their address information. You can set their title. Even if you don't use the feature that I talked about earlier to let users set their own, you could administer it here. You can also see and modify the custom fields. You can also see which groups that user belongs to. So it's a very, very fast, very helpful management console for users. We've also got a new page in the admin console that shows the last 30 days worth of import history. You can see all types of imports, whether they came from an application, a patch, an admin console package, which I just introduced. For every import, you can see the status of that import, how much of it succeeded, if all the objects imported, if there are any issues. You can see who did it, when they did it, and you get the link to that detailed import log that you get every time you perform an import. Oh, by the way, it also catches if you did imports through the API, so those will be listed there too. And lastly, the Appian 16.2 now supports the latest version of MySQL, which is version 5.7. You can use it as the Appian data source. You can use it as a business data source. And with that...
That is it. So we have a few more minutes for questions, but before we conclude with the Q&A, if you didn't catch anything, we'll be running the normal quarterly webinar on May 26th. We call it the trifecta webinar, so we run that at noon London time, noon Washington, D.C. time, and noon Sydney time, all in a single day. It will be a 90-minute session, so allowing us a little bit more time to demonstrate, show some of these examples. And of course, if you would like this entire presentation, if you happen to download the Appian app, log into Appian Forum from the Appian mobile application, or just log into Appian Forum from the web application, go to the records, Appian agenda. You can download all the slides from every single presentation at Appian World right when they are giving the presentation. So questions, answers on 16.2. Yes?
The quick app seems like a great start, a great time saver to get started with an app. There's two areas where I think it could be expanded, so I was wondering if you might go in that direction or you're thinking the same. Like, to me, it seems like it could have a very simple workflow where you say there's 3 approvals,
Yep.
and each one can either send it back one step or send it all the way back to the beginning, and then you can just configure that with a wizard. The other one I was thinking of, it has deadlines, it kind of has tasks. If you were thinking of an out-of-the-box chart and graphic, it completed processes escalate metrics based on the deadlines that you set,
Yep.
out of the part of it.
So Quick Apps does have a sequel. The sequel will probably be a few new features coming out in 16.3 without totally announcing those. So it'll be focused on reporting enhancements, other types of enhancements around some of the other features like sites or web APIs. But we're hearing a lot of that same feedback is ad hoc tasking is great, but I want to have just a simple approval on each one of those tasks or simple workflow logic. So we intend to, with a lot of our features, we put it out to market. We think it's a great MVP. As I hope you all saw is like, wow, just defining the record type of process models is going to be a huge time saver for pro developers. And it is pretty functional for business users as well. Our methodology in proc release is we put something out there, we let it bake, and we let you tell us what you want next. And we can make some guesses of what you want, but we're hearing a lot already around the maybe more advanced task management capabilities. Great. No, thanks, so for the comment. Other questions, comments? Great. It's a lot of information, so yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
It's a nice function you're doing with the admin properties, being able to export it. And I wish there was something similar, even just a function for constants and like a base URL that it's not an admin, it's a constant rule, but it's a different base if it's dev or test or production. So if there was a function you say, tell me what, if I'm in the dev environment, I want it to be this. So call a function like, environment or just something you can say.
Yeah. No, it's a great thing.
The question?
So the question was, we showed how admin console settings, specifically around configurations of data sources and such, can be promoted across environments. But what about regular design objects. So for example, a constant that points to a URL, and that URL might be one thing in dev and something totally different.
Or any
and right
number of
now,
other environment variables, right?
or
Yeah.
other similar environment variables. So that's definitely something that we're thinking about. We're looking to evolve the way that people build applications to make it more seamless. So we've definitely had some discussions around that. We don't have anything planned right now. Right now we do know a lot of people are using constants that vary across environments. So that's something that we're looking at improving.
The good thing is we're about 2 months away from the next release and about 3 months away from the next one. So every single one of these features we're going to be evolving on a quarterly basis. So yeah, no problem. Other questions, comments? Great. Well, thank you all for joining us, and thank you all for attending Appian World. We'll be staying up here if you have any other private questions. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks, everyone.